Hello. Sometimes people have the unnecessary gameplay footage while they're just talking about things. Like on the Overwatch channels, they're talking about patch notes and they just have some random gameplay footage in the background. Well, that's sort of what we're doing here. I'm logging in Gelsba Outpost in Final Fantasy XI on the Horizon server right now. But you don't get to watch it. But I just want you to know that it's there. Okay? The unimportant gameplay footage. This is a transformative work. You have to use your imagination to know what I look like logging trees in Gelsba right now. So the first video that was in this new series was about Snatcher, and I picked that because it's probably one of my favorite games ever, and it's so easy for me to just gush and nerd out about it because I've. It's easy to do that because there's so few people I've ever been able to do that with. That it's like a stick of fresh gum, that the flavor's all there and is ready to be chewed out. Um, but one of the things I also want to talk about, I guess, in general, is genre. Um, because visual novel, interactive stories, it's not really a thing that people outside of Japan really care about that much. But one of the genres that has really just fallen off over the years, especially because a subgenre has taken it over, is the spaceship shooter or the shmup. That's kind of been taken over by bullet hells. And I'll be completely honest, I don't really like bullet hells. I don't really enjoy those, to be honest. I like the Gradius. I like Life Force on the NES. Things like that. I like R-Type Final because it's not impossibly difficult. R-Type Delta is really one of the most unfun spaceship shooters I've ever played in my life because I think it's too difficult. I don't have fun with R-Type Delta. I enjoy watching people who can play R-Type Delta because I know how damn hard that game is. But the bullet hell thing where your ship is like 2 pixels big and there's 50 billion bolts on the screen. I don't really usually care for those. And the reason usually stems from the fact that your weapons don't feel like they have an impact. I like my weapons to feel like, oh yeah, I'm shooting this really powerful laser cannon, and it really feels like it's tearing this dude apart. The problem to me with bullet hells is that I feel like I'm just watching a bunch of sakura blossoms dance in the wind, and nothing feels like it has any real impact. The enemy's shots just feel like little floaty feathers, and the bullets I'm shooting just kind of feel like I'm blowing air out of a gun, and they don't even really feel like they're doing anything. So in that regard, and just the general difficulty of bullet hells, I don't typically enjoy them. Modern day, I will give a shout out to Asta Breed. That is what I would hope that the future of the spaceship shooter will become. In fact, I think I'm just going to talk about a bunch of spaceship shooters right now because I can't help myself. Because again, this is a genre that no one here in this country knows about anymore, and barely anyone played it back when it was here. But the first and primary one I want to talk about is The Guardian Legend, because that game is something else. It is a spaceship shooter mixed with an RPG element styled Legend of Zelda 1, where instead of going into dungeons, you go into spaceship top down overhead spaceship shooter sections while traversing a top down overhead overworld where exploration is going to lead to all kinds of cool power ups and upgrades and all that kind of stuff. And money is weird in that game because they took a hint from The Legend of Zelda 1 where money is also kind of your ammunition. Buying things from the shops requires chips, or chip as it's called. The thing is that to use your special weapons and all that, that also requires using chip. Also, the lower your chip rating is from your max to your current, that also affects what type of gun you have. Kind of in a vein from Blaster Master. When you pick up a higher gun upgrade and your main gun changes a little bit. your main gun changes in Guardian Legend in both the overhead and the spaceship shooter sections, depending on how much mana you have, basically. It's not usually that big a deal. Enemies drop blue spheres and red spheres, and those are, mana and health respectively. But one of the things I just always really liked about the power-ups in the Guardian Legend is, number one, remember, this is an old era of video games where if you didn't pick up those coins or that health power-up or this or that or whatever, it's going to start blinking really quickly and then vanish from the screen because it's a limited chipset on the console and it can't have too many sprites on the screen. So they're going to make things despawn. But the way the Guardian Legend kind of got around that, I thought was pretty clever, is that every power-up appears as the same, like, pod. And it's not actually technically a sprite on the screen. Wherever the pod lands, it actually overwrites part of the in-game background. So it's not taking up the sprite slots and all the resolution processing required for that. It actually it's not like, it's just a cool way to do that and get around that. And that also adds the added fun to me of when you see the little flashy rainbow thing of, oh, this enemy's going to drop an item, cool. The little pod thing appeared. They just look cool. There's these little silver cases with these red jewels on them. You got to shoot them a couple times and crack them open and find out what power-up you get. That makes it satisfying. It's not just, I killed the enemy, they dropped the thing, and then I touched it and I picked it up. It's just there's this little extra fun to me, always was, of like, you clear out all the enemies on the screen and they have like all their power-up canisters, and then it's like, all right, cool, now I'm gonna go around and break them all open and watch my health and mana go like way back up, and there's something about it that is so deeply satisfying. I've never been able to find a game that did something like that and felt so satisfying to just fight enemies and pick up the stuff they dropped. And there's many bosses in the overworld that you don't have to fight any of those. Those are only going to give you attack upgrades, defense upgrades, which you really want, although they're not actually mandatory. But the other thing is that you can also upgrade all your special weapons into 3 different tiers, like in Legend of Zelda, where you have the wooden sword, silver sword, master sword. When you get a special weapon for the first time, it'll have a blue border around it. If you beat a boss and it's like, oh, hey, I already have that special weapon, and then you pick it up again, it's like, it's got a green border now. Oh, it does way more damage, but it also takes more MP. So it's not necessarily just a straight upgrade. It's kind of like a turbocharge if you choose to pick these things up. And sometimes, for example, some weapons, maybe you don't want to fight that mini boss and get that upgrade immediately, because the turbocharge and the MP isn't really as effective or useful as it would be to just keep the way it is, increase your max MP, and then be able to spam it more and have a wider coverage of area with that special weapon. It's something you figure out just by playing the game. But it's just got this fantastic difficulty curve to it, in my opinion, to an extent. I posted an MS Paint picture of a boss from the game in my little community post thing here on YouTube, because that boss was a wall for me, my brother, and my mom for like 7 years, actually. Oh, hey, ACO's asking me what I'm doing. Recording that Guardian Legend vid, baby. Yeah, there. Hang on, there, see? I actually said that. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't want me to stay you down there. I apologize for that. Anyway, that was a normal thing for me and my brother and my mom to just like play different video games together. Like, we play through Who Framed Roger Rabbit and stuff like that, which was not a very good game. But I mean, even back in like Commodore 64 days, we just kind of played some games together, And the Guardian Legend was one of those games that was so difficult that it was really useful to be like, okay, I died to this boss for like the 3rd time. here, someone else try it and give it a shot. I'm mentally exhausted. I can't do this anymore. And no matter what, we can never get past the Blue Eye boss. Now, again, I said the Guardian Legend is not a bullet hell, but the thing that makes the Blue Eye boss so extraordinarily difficult is you don't really have very many chances. I may even be misremembering completely. I don't know if you have any chances with what the weapons and abilities you have at that point to collect any health or chip during the Blue Eye boss fight, because I think he only shoots those black and white diamond bullets that you can only destroy with the enemy erasers, and you can't get enemy erasers at that point in the game yet. So it's not easy. And it was for about, I want to say it must have been about 6 years. I played that game for about 6 years. My mom and my brother gave up on the Guardian Legend, and they were like, we can't get past this Blue Eye. We're never going to get past the Blue Eye. But I was a resilient kid, and even though it was like, even if I can only get up to the Blue Eye boss, I'll try to beat him for 20 minutes, half an hour, an hour. I can't beat the Blue Eye boss. The Blue Eye boss is impossible. Whatever, I'll start the game over, and I became very familiar, with like the first casual hour and a half of that game, because I couldn't get any further. I'll just keep replaying the parts I can play, But even playing that game for 6 years, every couple months, it's like, I'm gonna try to beat Ninja Gaiden, or I'm gonna try to beat this game, or I'm gonna try to beat the Guardian Legend, Okay, these games are too hard. I'm gonna go play Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers because I can beat that game in half an hour and feel good about myself. The thing that was so cool about the Guardian Legend, though, is in those spaceship sections, it basically was a bullet hell, but it was beneficial for you to just crash into everything and blow everything up and knock out a lot of the enemy bullets to try and get health and MP back. It's a pretty brutal game. You don't play it like other spaceship shooters. You're kind of rewarded for rushing in with the laser sword, the dual laser blade. Yeah, you can equip a double saber, a double lightsaber as a weapon you can use in that game when you're in the spaceship sections. It shoots out the sides of your ship, and it deals like 50 damage every 3 frames or something. It just rips things the frick apart. It feels good. The whole game just always feels good to play. Because a lot of spaceship shooters are all like, here's the Vic Viper, a $680 billion masterwork spacecraft, the result of the unified Allied space front's effort to make the ultimate warship, culmination of 270 years of research to defeat the enemy. I hit a pebble and the whole damn thing exploded. That's pretty much... That's every spaceship shooter, right? Why do you blow up when you hit a frickin' rock? This is the fate of the galaxy is dependent on this thing? Jeez, at least that X-Wing could take a hit or two, and an astromech could, maybe run some repairs or something. Why was every spaceship in all these old games such a piece of flimsy garbage? But Guardian Legend, not only can you take a lot of hits, you're kind of encouraged to. Playing brashly and recklessly and having guts and, playing with gusto and balls is highly rewarded. But nonetheless, that Blue Eye boss was just so savagely difficult because he deals like 8 times more damage than anything else, and he just has so much dang HP. How you beat this darn old thing? But after 6 years of grinding that thing, every once in a while, I finally managed to beat it. And then we were like, hey, man, jeez, that boss was the hardest thing in this whole game. And, we got through, like, the crystal levels, like the satellite boss and all that stuff. And then, just got to, like, the second to last area is the weird flesh area with all the eyeballs and everything, as I recall. It's kind of H.P. Lovecraftian at that point. But the final area where there's As you're walking around on foot, there's just meteor and asteroid storms crashing into you all around you, on top of the enemies that you have to fight. But by that point in the game, you're such an astronomical, force for ultimate space justice that you're literally just walking through asteroids crashing into the ground like it's rain, and it's kind of like, is that supposed to hurt me? I'm here to kick your ass, man. You think your little space rocks could do something to me? And this is while she's walking around on foot, not in her special armored spaceship form. By the end of that game, you feel pretty darn powerful. But that last corridor, neither me, my mom, or my brother could beat it. We got through the entire game, beat every boss, got every item, every power-up, every secret, maxed out absolutely everything, highest rapid fire rate you can get, just everything. The final corridor is every single boss in a row. Keeping in mind that a lot of the times when you would fight these bosses in their corridors, you were probably scraping by with like 2 or 3 HP left by the time you finally won. And now you gotta fight all of them in a row. So you gotta start getting tactical at this point. It's like, okay, that one boss that shoots up all them missiles everywhere and everything, we ain't gonna speed kill him. We're gonna farm his missiles to recover our mana midway through this endless boss gauntlet so we can actually get to the end of the dang old thing. And only a couple times did we actually get through the boss gauntlet. And this plays that really weird song, and your ship is gold and like engulfed in this, light of this explosion aura, essentially, as the planet is erupting and exploding, and you just see like this golden aura around your ship as the light is hitting it and reflecting off it. And it's just, I only saw that part a couple times because it was really hard to get through that boss gauntlet. And then you have to fight the actual final boss. These days in modern times, we have some strategies and tactics that you can beat the last boss with fairly easily. Get in the top left corner and fire the double back wave, right? So apparently all you needed to do. But we could never beat that thing, because we were just doing the enemy eraser strategy, where you just get up in its face and fire your main gun and spam the EE, the enemy erasers, to delete the 30,000 bullets that he's barfing in random directions in a fountain across the screen, to vainly try to get enough HP back before he destroys you. It wasn't until, I think I was probably 27 years old. I was actually playing Final Fantasy XI around the time. And I sent my brother a screenshot of the end of Guardian Legend. And I was like, dude, this is the first time I have ever seen this screen we'd seen the screen, but it's like I had never actually seen it myself, I had never earned it for myself. And so I thought that was a big deal. And then my brother's like, oh yeah, I did that last year. And then he posted a screenshot of him beating it too. And I was like, man, why didn't you tell me? I thought I was the first one to finally beat it, man. You didn't tell me. I think I had a higher score than him, though. So I think I was gloating on him over that. I think I just killed this person's EXP, but they were also going to die, and they shouldn't have been fighting this crap, so I don't really care. I know this type of person. You run around, try to cure you, you run out of range of it. What you doing? Try to heal you, son. Anyway, I always just thought that was funny, that I was like, oh man, I finally beat the Guardian Legend. I'm gonna show off, in our family group chat in Messenger. And he's just like, you already did that. All right, cool. Thanks, bro. Appreciate you. But seriously, you gotta check out the Guardian Legend, man. It's really challenging, but it's really rewarding when you can actually get through things in that game. And games these days, they're not willing to just, punch you in the face and, just kick you in the butt that freaking hard. And I really, really enjoy the Guardian Legend. Even still to this day, I'll pick it up and play it sometimes just because it's like, dude, it's a spaceship shooter with RPG elements. How you going to go wrong with that? But, that's the main story here. I mentioned Asta Breed for a moment. I want to just mention that again real quick. Asta Breed is a spaceship shooter where you don't fly a spaceship. You fly a super crazy, like, Mega Gundam with a giant sword and, like, multiple crazy gun barf patterns and crazy lock-on lasers. And if you lock onto all the different enemies at once, you can actually just chase after them like a flying armored mecha Gundam ninja flying through space with a giant sword and just teleporting around all the enemies and cutting them up, and you're invincible temporarily while you're doing that crazy sword chain combo. You can just spam the sword button, swing it around in front of you. You can eat certain kinds of bullets, not all of them, but make sure you eat enough bullets because that's the way you charge up your special attacks to use your Mega Sword thing. Asta Breed, very, very dope. Pretty hard, really high action, high octane game. Gives you tons of options. Very difficult to play. You really have to customize the button configurations because the game demands you press every button and use both sticks and all four shoulder buttons pretty much at the same freaking time. And it's pretty difficult to do that with human hands. So figure out what playstyle and button config you want. Asta Breed is a dope game, but it is probably also the most difficult to control spaceship shooter I've ever played. But the reward for the high dexterity and the eye-hand coordination is out of this world and very unique. Something in common with every spaceship shooter I'm going to be mentioning here is that you have health bars in all of these, and they're not one-hit kills. So if you're unfamiliar with the spaceship shooter genre, and you're maybe looking to get into them, the games I'm mentioning now I would recommend because they actually are a little more forgiving than a lot of other spaceship shooters. Of course, very entry-level concept to the spaceship shooter, and one of my favorites is Star Fox or Star Fox 64. And the reason I'm bringing those up is because one of my other favorite spaceship shooters of all time is also kind of genre-bending, but in a different way. You ever played Parasite Eve? Early Square RPG PS1. They labeled it as the cinematic RPG. A trend that carried over into Racing Lagoon that we didn't really get over here, which is unfortunate, but is in English now. But anyway, the cinematic RPG. Philosoma. I'm going to spell that for you because it's so weird, and I don't even know if that's a real word, to be honest with you. Philosoma. Philosoma. I just thought of the Derek comedy skit. If you're one of the people in Solaris, you know which one I was thinking of, and I'm trying not to die and choke laughing right now. Philosoma is one of the most weird and memorable spaceship shooter experiences in my life. It genuinely is a cinematic spaceship shooter. The amount of detail and effort that went into the modeling of the main ships in Philosoma, still to this day, I think is one of the greatest ship designs in spaceship shooter history. Because it's every single part of the ship. Number one, it looks dope. It looks freaking awesome. But it's where form and function meet with absolute immaculateness and perfection. Every single part of that ship is designed for a reason and a purpose and a function, and it looks good. It's not just like, Crimson Clover, for example. The ship in Crimson Clover looks completely awesome, but why do you need to fly a spaceship made of swords? Does that actually do anything? No, it just looks really cool. The ships in Philosoma, every part of it has a purpose, right down to the very tips of the things next to the cockpits, because you see in the opening movie, that's where the inflatable heat shields come out, so these ships are actually capable of atmospheric entry from their intergalactic space station that they are docked on. And it's not just like, oh, each weapon that this ship uses just kind of comes out of the front of it. You can see during cutscenes and just in the general way that where the weapons come from on the ship, is that it's like, no, the Vulcans come from this back section on the rear hull of the back parts of the stabilizers. The laser is a single cannon coming from the underside of the front of the ship. The missiles are actually being launched from the underside of the wings, underneath and toward the front of the cockpit area. The rear laser cannon thing is actually shooting out of an area right between where all the engines are, and is actually a functional part of being used for heat disbursement. And because this thing, when you're going afterburner speeds inside an atmosphere, that ship be getting hot. And so there's actually a functional use for launching out these chunks of explosively hot energy out the backside of your ship as a weapon, because this thing would be overheating and exploding by having these jet engines going inside an atmosphere for so long. And then, of course, you have your crazy charge cannon thing that I don't know where that shoots from. It envelops the ship and then launches out like a Hadouken, so whatever. I don't actually know where that one comes from. I'm not the world's foremost leading Philosoma expert. I'm sorry, although I'm probably close to it, to be honest with you, because I've never heard anyone talk about this freaking game. YouTuber I love, Seidragon, SEI-Dragon, Japanese YouTuber, live streams himself playing shooters all the time. Check him out. I watch him at 6 a.m. in my time all freaking day. He's part of my morning wake up routine. When I see Seidragon streaming shooters, I check him out every morning while I'm in the wake up process, bro. I don't know why he only gets like 3 viewers at a time. He's an amazing spaceship genius, bro. He's so good at those games. But he actually played Philosoma recently, and I was like, no way! This was like a vertical black box PS1 game of all things. It's super old, original PS1 game. And I just absolutely fell in love with the really high quality English dubbed voice acting. Because that wasn't just like a thing in the game that was kind of there. The whole point of the game is to tell a story. It just so happens to be done through a spaceship shooter for some reason. Really quixotically, the game actually had a sequel in the PlayStation 2. Yeah, it was an adventure game like King's Quest on a space station. It was not a spaceship shooter at all. And it wasn't just like, what does this have to do with Philosoma? It literally has absolutely every single thing to do with Philosoma. It's just an adventure game for some reason, because that was the way the story had to be finished. Matter of fact, while I'm here, you're probably not even going to believe me if I tell you this. So, you want to know what the plot of Philosoma is? A crazy biological alien life form turned an entire technopolized planet into a nest to, kind of regenerate its species population. And one of the last things that is really necessary for it to do, after it has spread all kinds of organisms across the planet, it's biological, crazy, evil flubber stuff that gets inside of police robots and, cargo crafts, military weapons and everything, and just kind of takes over the inside of the craft and becomes a bizarre, amorphous amalgamation of just armor and technology and flesh, and it's super freaking weird and creepy. That's what's on the surface, though. As you dive into the core, everything becomes a little more organic. And there was one particular part in the game that, as a younger man, the voice acting really sold to me. That this hardened, crazy ace pilot who has been cooler than a cucumber, buried 200 feet under the snow in an Arctic pole the entire game, when she suddenly starts freaking the absolute F out when her ship starts autopiloting itself through a vent shaft that she did not want to go down, and is absolutely panicking about how the AI is not listening to her anymore, and what do? I am going to die. Just the sheer panic in that voice actress's voice. I can still hear it in my head at will to this day, because it was just haunting, quite frankly. That's a good word for Phyllis Soma, actually, is haunting. Um, more members of your crew. They don't really survive. They keep going down, and by the time you finally end up going through this weird underground river, and there's these, you're looking around at all this, you can see beneath your ship, of off in the distance, up in the ceiling, that something has just laid like millions and millions and millions of eggs in this subterranean aquatic chamber, with kind of this sapphiric blue lighting reflecting off of all the caverns and the stalagmites and the stalactites as they occasionally fuse together near the water's surface, making a stone arch. And everything is just glowing, and you just fighting off all these weird pterodactyl-like creatures and blowing them up as they start screaming and shrieking as their gore descends down into the river. And then a very large and truly bizarre water bird salamander thing emerges out of the water, and you can see that this is the thing that's been laying these eggs. Okay. You can see this weird egg cluster thing in its lower abdominal section, and it's like, oh, okay, ugh, gosh, this thing's effing just weird, and it just looks so, it has aspects of naturally occurring biological organisms, but the way they look and the way they're pieced together is so unnatural, it can't help but just feel so weird. Like a Doctor Who creature or something. And you beat that thing, and then Alice, your ship's AI, is like, by the way, I could have told you this soon, but I want you to know that the SOS signal we've been tracing the whole time, it's actually like right above us right now. And it's like, what do you mean it's above? If it's above us, why do we come underground all this way? And it's like, no, I don't mean it's above us. I mean it's right above us. Haven't you been looking at it this whole time? And then the camera pans up into the ceiling, very close in on one of those globular, sticky, wet, translucent egg sacs that's been hanging from the ceiling, and it is the same as the millions and millions under the water and all over the cave walls. And as it zooms in, you can see that it just vaguely resembles a slowly melting human skull, as the brain is emerging out through the bones, and eyes are leaking down into the mouths where the disfigured teeth, all pointing different directions, are just fading into a black amorphous hair sludge. Those are what remains of the survivors who asked you to come here. And whatever these creatures are, they were smart enough to take the SOS beacon and drag it all the way down there to get you to show up. Because that's when they capture one of your comrades and drag him into the core of the planet. And as you give chase, you realize that the hollowed out interior contains a singular organism in an embryonic state that currently requires the only thing that Alice can now say in a continuously growing, slower and more deeply toned repetition of fertilization. 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 mission. And then it just goes back to the peak octave all the way at the top and just slowly sinks down. And it just keeps saying fertilization over and over as you are ripping into this multi-mile long alien embryo with your laser cannon to, surgically remove your friend's ship from the inside of it. That's when you come to realize this is exactly what it wanted you to do. 'Cause tricked, that wasn't actually an egg. That was I am not playing. You're gonna think I'm playing. It was a mile-wide diameter testicle, and you just blew it up and fertilized the actual embryo. And as you escape out from the planet, it, fuses with every single other thing on the planet. Immaterial, organic, non-organic, all things are now fused into the planet baby embryo. And then as you, as the only two ship survivors, make your way back onto the docking ship, the main pilot, unaware that a single non-amalgamated mosquito from the planet is clinging onto the backside of her ship's engines. She laments that the mission was a failure. We didn't save anybody, and we lost so many. And then Alice just says, mission complete. The pilot just says, what? And then Alice, as her voice descends deeper, just says, mission accomplished. Mission accomplished. And then the credits roll. Tell me that wouldn't mess you up as a kid. It's just screwy, man. It's messed up. And that is why the sequel takes place on the ship, because you're watching that planet trying to, come into a full organic state. And, if it does, it's going to start eating other planets as sources of food and keep growing bigger until it kind of devours the universe. You don't really want that to happen. But yeah, thanks for listening to me talk about spaceship shooters, because nobody plays them, and I love them. Particularly the ones that I have mentioned here. I just absolutely adore them so much. And it's unfortunately kind of a dead genre. I mean, I remember back in like 2010 or something when someone was like, man, spaceship shooters is just a dead genre. And I'm like, no, they're not. And someone was like, yeah, they are. It's just all bullet hells now. Haven't you noticed? And I'm like, oh my gosh, it is. There's like barely any spaceship shooters anymore. But I hope, if you've never played one before, that maybe you'll check out one of the ones I've mentioned. Ask to Breed is on Steam. It's not too expensive. Guardian Legend is an NES game. You can emulate it on a phone from 10 years ago. And, yeah, Philosoma, just a PS1 game. And I am pretty sure it's abandonware at this point, much like Snatcher, because just a weird spaceship shooter game about making a space planet baby with your cool ships. But yeah, man, appreciate y'all's time. There's too many people logging in Gelsba now, so I think I'm out. We got 9 Elm logs in the course of this video. 9 Elm logs in 40 minutes ain't bad when you have competition. That's pretty good, right? Anyway, again, thank y'all for your time. Appreciate you. Seriously, I hope you check out one of those games. And if you have checked them out, let me know. I'm always looking for people to talk about these games with. No one knows what any of them are. Geez, maybe next time I'll talk about 428 Shibuya Scramble. 2 people have ever played that game. Peace out. Appreciate y'all.